Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. I'm your host and producer, Logan Landers. Joining me here today to talk about the Buffalo Bills 2024 NFL team preview, my guy from the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network, Jay McLovin. Jay, how you doing, my friend? And let the fans at home know how you think Buffalo will do this upcoming season. Is this finally the year, Jay, that they break through, bring home a Lombardi trophy, or do you think it might take a little bit longer? What do you think?
Yeah, look, I appreciate it, man. It's good to be here. No, I don't think the Bills are going to do anything. Matter of fact, I don't even think the Bills make the playoffs. And here's a couple of reasons for that that I'm going to go through here.
All right, let's do it.
They lost a whole hell of a lot, and they really did not bring nearly enough back. It's kind of like if I had a jar and I lost 75% of the liquid, I only brought about 15% back, honestly. So let's start off with James Cook. I think he's going to be the big bright spot for this team, honestly. Last year he did 237 carries for 1,122 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he averaged about 4.7 yards. The lack of touchdowns really comes because Josh Allen really likes to rush the ball to the goal line a lot. So Josh Allen really ate into a lot of James Cook's touchdowns. But for his first year as a starter to put up over 1,100 yards, that's a good start for what you got coming next season. He's a very young guy, so I expect to see a big season here for him. Matter of fact, I think he's going to be his biggest season coming out this year. But I also think that Josh Allen is really going to eat a lot into that touchdown. So I don't expect him to get a lot of touchdowns, but I do expect him to put up the yardage. Again, so you look at the second running back they got, Shakir. He went 39 for 611, and again, 2 touchdowns. Or excuse me, wide receivers. I'm in the wide receivers now. Shakir. So again, Shakir, who put up 611 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not really all that impressive to me. You had Coleman, who they drafted out of Florida State this year. I think he could be the biggest bright spot for them. They took him at the 33rd pick in the second round. He actually called Andre Reed and asked him to be his mentor and get some guidance for him. So that tells me that this guy, Coleman, really is an all-in type of guy. So I really expect to see a lot out of Coleman, and I think that's going to be your wide receiver 1 at some point. They brought in another journeyman, Curtis Samuel. That guy's bounced around the league. Again, another 613-yard season. They brought in Chase Claypool. Not really a whole lot out of this guy, 77 yards last season. They brought in Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Again, not really. He's kind of a third down kind of, or a third option kind of receiver. Yeah, so he put up 315 yards and a touchdown. So I think you got a possible wide receiver 1 surrounded by a bunch of journeymen because you let go of Davis, you let go to Jacksonville, you let go of Stephon Diggs to Houston. And when you let go of that and you bring in a bunch of journeymen and a draft pick, that just kind of tells you where this team is heading, right? Again, not a whole hell of a lot there on the wide receiver front. They did draft, or actually, to be honest with you, Don, you know what is going to be the wide receiver 1 for the team? And it ain't a wide receiver. It's actually their tight end, Dalton Kincaid. He actually was the number 2 wide receiver last year for those guys at 673 yards. But now that there's no Diggs, now that there's no Davis, now that you got a bunch of journeymen, I think Dalton Kincaid is going to be their leading wide receiver. And that is kind of a problem for me. They lost, like I said, key players on the defense and Poirier and offense as well. So I don't think they make the playoffs. They added through free agency in the draft. Again, they lost Diggs. They lost Davis. They lost Tre'Davious White. They lost Poirier. They lost Morris. They lost Leonard Floyd. They brought in Kayvon Coleman, and they brought in Cole Bishop to safety and a defensive tackle in Carter. They brought in free agents, like I said, Samuels, Mike Edwards on defense, Lyle Collins from the Cowboys now on their O-line. So they did bring in a couple of things, but it's just, in my opinion, not enough. So I got 5 predictions for this team, Logan, and I'm going to leave it at that. I got Kincaid as your top wide receiver. I think he's going to lead in receptions. I think he's going to be the Mark Andrew like he was for Lamar Jackson. I think Dalton Kincaid is going to be the same thing for Josh Allen. I think number 2, Ed Oliver, makes good on his potential. I think he should be a Pro Bowler in 2023. He put up 9.5 sacks, 14 tackles, for loss and 16 QB hits and 51 combined tackles. I think this year is going to be his breakout year, and he's going to get into that Pro Bowl category with them. Number 3 prediction is I think Josh Allen will rush for 20 touchdowns, tied record for QB Hurts last year at 15 in 2023. I think this year he goes from 15 to 20. Again, that's going to eat into James Cook's touchdown production. I think James Cook will lead the NFL in rushing, but he's going to score less than 5 touchdowns, again, due to Allen is going to rob a lot of that from him. And 2023, under Kevin Dorsey, they for 10 games as the offensive coordinator, he had 12 carries. He rushed for 61.5 yards a game and 1 rushing touchdown. And I think in the 7 games under Brady, he went to 16.7 carries for 72.4 yards on average or for total. And then rushing, he had 1 touchdown. So I think now that he's got Brady there, I think Brady's going to amp up his game even more this year than it was last year as well. I think they finished at 9-8 and finished the playoffs. And I think it's going to be due to a couple of things: lack of depth. Miami and their talent and Jets got better with the additions that they brought in, and Aaron Rodgers is healthy. I think Buffalo finishes number 3. And the last thing I want to say is Miami, Jacksonville, Baltimore, Houston, Jets, Miami, KC, San Fran, Detroit, and the Jets are all going to be the games they lose, and they're going to finish at 9-8 and miss the playoffs.
Strong words, Jay. You don't mix your words, do you, buddy?
Nope, not on this one.
Not at all. So when I look at Buffalo, this is a team who you can easily say, I think, lost more than they gained this offseason, right? They lost a lot of players, a lot of them on defense. You mentioned Diggs on offense. And they gained, like you said, they gained some solid players overall, like in the draft and whatnot. But I don't know if that's going to be enough. Because, and also let's not forget the reason why they had to get rid of all these guys, Jay. They were in limbo in cap space. They had so much money that they had to just shed in order to get ready for the season. They had to really work around some things to make sure they could make this season work. And I think that could hurt them. When I look at this team, Jay, it's going to have to be an A+ year if you're Josh Allen. It's going to have to be potential MVP type numbers. And the big thing is he's going to have to cut, like we've seen prior, is he has to cut down on interceptions. That's the big one for him.
Yeah.
29 touchdowns last season, top 5 in the league, 18 INTs. 4,000 plus yards. Like you said, he's got 18 interceptions. Plus, like you said, he's not afraid to get it done with his legs as well. Last season ran for 424, and he also got 15 touchdowns, which was a career high. As you mentioned, he really got things going with his leg in short bursts last season. Rest of this team, how quick can these wide receivers adapt? How quick can they get things going? I'm mostly looking at Keon Cole. Because, like I said, he is the young guy who they drafted, who they're looking to fill the role of Stephon Diggs. Jay, this guy's a rookie. I understand he's highly touted, and he's got a lot of potential. We've talked about him here on the show a good amount. But it's hard to replace Stephon Diggs, who you can easily say is a top 10. Some might say top 5. Some might say top 3. Just depends on who you ask. Receiver in this league. That is a big blow to their receiving room. Then you look at the rest of the guys. Chase Claypool, someone who early in his career with Pittsburgh and whatnot, everyone said, "Oh, this guy could be really worth something. He could really roll." But I mean, Jay, that was 5 years ago. I mean, his 2 best seasons were his rookie and sophomore year. Other than that, his highest total in terms of receiving yards and whatnot was 2022. That was only 311. So I don't know if he's going to be reliable as a potential third down or even second option for your wide receiver core. KJ Hamler, Matt Collins is someone who has always been a good receiver, a solid player, and that can really help out. But like you said, I think Curtis Samuel is somebody who I think will take that number 2 role. 62 grabs last season for 600-plus yards. Only 4 touchdowns for him on the year. And then you mentioned Khalil Shakir. Like I say, he's 24, coming out of Boise State. Put up some solid numbers, 39 grabs for 6'11". You're going to need him to really get things going here. But this is definitely a roster in terms of wide receiving core that some days they just might not have it, man. And they're going to have to get on with that running back room, as you mentioned. That's going to be led by James Cook, who he's still 24, and he has put up some solid numbers. Especially last year, it was a really big coming out party for him. Second year in the league, over 1,000 yards on the ground. Like you mentioned, only 2 touchdowns. That's just because Josh was running all of them in. But he was 10th in the league in carries with 237, and he averaged 4.7 yards per rush, which ain't too shabby in my eyes. So I think that if he can maintain that level of play, if not get a little bit better, then that'll help out. He's going to be backed up by Ray Davis, a guy who, when you look at him, he's 24, coming out of Kentucky. We'll see if he can be a valuable backup. And then Darrington Evans, who's going to be, I believe, your third-string guy. Didn't do a whole much last year, but we'll see how that shakes out. But then let's go over to like you mentioned, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox. Those are going to be 2 guys who are going to have to really take a bigger leap this year to make up for the wide receiving talent that was lost and just how the room is looking this year. So I think that, like I said, Kincaid's only 24, Jay. He's got the best years ahead of him. And in 2 seasons, he's already put up some solid numbers, right? 73 catches last year, which is solid for 600-plus yards. So I think that he'll get better. I think that he will be a really good threat, and we could really see him break out this year if all is said and done out there. But like I said, you're going to have good play on your O-line as well. Guys like you're seeing with Cedric Van Pran, who they got out of Georgia, who's going to be taking over there, helping out, at your center position with Will Clapp. You got guys like Gunnar Britton. You got Connor McGovern, Alec Anderson, just to name a few. Of course, you got guys like Lyle Collins, like you mentioned, coming over from your Cowboys, who's going to be helping out. Deion Dawkins, another one who's going to have to really get things going here. But if the O-line can protect Allen, like and if Allen can make sure that he's not throwing interceptions like we saw last year with his 18, they can still, I think, make some noise on offense. I think they will take a slight step down this season, however, just, of course, with the loss of Diggs. Heading over to the defense, you got guys who are on your team who you got like Greg Rousseau, right? 5 sacks last year. We'll see if he can step things up. Starting off on the O-line. AJ Epenza, right? 6.5 sacks last year. Not too shabby at all. Then you got guys like Cameron Klein, who's coming over from South Dakota. See if he can maybe break out, have a good rookie year. But I think that when you look at this team, when you look at some of the defense guys, Ed Oliver, of course, someone who's 9.5 sacks last year, that's going to be your leader again. Is really going to have to just really make some turnovers, get things going if they want to. Your linebacking core, you've got Matt Milano, who I believe was he hurt last year, Jay? If I'm not mistaken, I believe so. That or he missed some time, I remember. But he's had some good years. Of course, Von Miller, right? Von Miller was their big money acquisition. I mean, my God, they rolled out the Brinks truck for him, Jay. It didn't work out. It has not worked out so far. 12 games last season, Jay. He didn't really do much for you. He was just kind of there.
I think you see him on the depth chart, so I don't even know where this guy's at now at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that's what is crazy to me, right?
Yeah,
is he came over from Denver and Los Angeles, and he was the next best thing since sliced bread, right? He was putting up great numbers, especially in Denver. Denver was his peak. Right. With the Los Angeles, helped him get a championship in 21. But since he's been in Buffalo, it just has not worked out at all. Mm-mm. In 2022, you could say, all right, worked out well. 8 sacks, not too shabby. 21. In terms of tackles, he's never been a big tackler. He's more so been there for sacks. He got 21 tackles in 22. But last year, Jay, He played in 12 games, so that means he hasn't been as healthy, right? He hasn't played in over 13 games since 2019. He played in 7 games in 21, 8 games in 21 as well when he was traded midway. Or excuse me, that's when he was traded. I forgot. So he played 15 games combined, but then 22 he played in 12 games, and this past year he only played in 12 games. So you're not getting him on the field as much, and I get he is older, right? He's 35, but this is supposed to be your captain, right? It's supposed to be your leader. Can he go into the fountain of youth, Joe? Can he maybe go back and get things going? It remains to be seen. Let's go back to the corners, though. Let's go on the guys on the outside edge who can help out. You got players like Rasul Douglas. You're also seeing like Christian Benford as well. But let's not forget, Jay, I'm looking at this roster, and we all know Jordan Poyer ain't there no more. Right. That's a big loss for them.
Right.
So when I look at this team as a unit for Buffalo, it's tough because you mentioned the Jets are hopefully, fingers crossed out there, are going to have Aaron Rodgers healthy for a full season. The Dolphins were breathing down their necks last year, Jay. Let's not forget they finished with the exact same record of 11-6. Patriots, I still don't believe in 100% in terms of being a contender. But it's not like it's cakewalk anymore like it was for a couple of seasons.
Right.
I don't know if Buffalo has the talent this year to get as deep as a lot of people thought. Because as you mentioned, they have a tough schedule. When they're coming in the regular season, Cardinals week 1 should be a win. That should be a win. But then you got then you got the Dolphins, Jaguars, who are a young team. You got the Ravens, who have really just locked and loaded this year. The Texans, who surprised everyone this past season. The Jets, who are supposed to make some noise in the East. The Titans, it should be a win there, I think. The Seahawks, who could make some noise. Dolphins, again, it's going to be a tough matchup. The Colts could be an interesting game there. The Chiefs, and then the Niners in back-to-back week. Excuse me, they got the Chiefs, then they're off. Then they come back and play the 49ers. So that's not really going to be much of an off week to relax. You got the Rams, Lions, Rams, Lions, Patriots, Jets, and then Patriots again to end out the year. It's a tough schedule.
Right.
It's a tough schedule, Jay. So do you think that they missed the playoffs?
Yeah, I do. I think Miami is going to be number 1, and barring injuries, obviously, if the Miami stays healthy, and if the Jets can keep Aaron Rodgers healthy, I think it's going to go Miami at 1, Jets at 2, Buffalo at 3. And there are some issues with Miami. We'll get into that on the next show, but I do think that Miami, if they can avoid injuries, I think they're going to be 1, Jets, and then Buffalo, and then I think New England will wrap it up at the bottom.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. I think this Bills team, I think they take a step back. I do. I don't think they're going to be bottom of the barrel. Not by no means necessary. I don't think they have an awful roster. But I don't think this is the team that we've seen in years past, that perennial AFC champions, AFC East champions, going to potentially Super. I don't see that this year. Just because of the amount of cap and the amount of cap they had to shed, and the talented players, the amount of players that they had to get rid of in order to be under the cap. Right. That, and then you add on the fact that Von Miller could potentially have one of the worst contracts in football. It's not all sunshine and rainbows out there in Buffalo, man. I'm just saying. It's tough out there, but I think that my final thoughts, I think Buffalo, decent team. I might have to agree with you, buddy. I don't know. I don't think they win the East. I don't think they win the East. I think, we'll talk later shows about who we think could, but I don't think they win it this year. I think they might be fighting for a wild card spot. I think that could be in their cards, maybe. If they win it, I don't know. Would you call that a success though? If they even get in the playoffs?
For this Buffalo's Bills team, they're not going to see success for a while. Well, I think they status quo. No, I think they're going to be below status quo. I think if you make the playoffs, I think it actually hurts your team. Because here's the deal. If you don't make it to the Super Bowl and become a champion, then you get a really crappy draft pick, right? Mm-hmm. So you're not going to improve your team just by making the playoffs because you're not going to get a good draft pick out of it. You're going to get a mediocre. And this team is in desperate need of a wide receiving core. Their wide receiving core is just crap. Their defense.
So do you think they need to go? They need to go the free agent route? I don't really know who's even available for them to pick up.
Yeah, at this point, they're getting the window for Buffalo has really, in my opinion, has closed.
You think so?
For a while unless they can do something with this receiving core. I think because they got the run game, they got the pass game, they got a decent O-line, but their receiving core isn't good, and their back end of that secondary isn't good. And I just think they are a lot of players away from really. So no, I don't think for them. I don't think it depends on how you define success. In my eyes, they've taken steps back, and when you take steps back, that's not being a success in my eyes.
All right. Well said there, Jay. Well said. And it's going to be interesting, man, to see what this team does. We want to hear from you, though, the fans. Has the Buffalo Bills window closed? Have we seen the last of this potential unit, of this core group of players? I mean, we've seen a lot of guys already leave. Is this just kind of the remains for this Buffalo Bills team? It remains to be seen. But it will be it'll be an interesting season if you're a Bills fan nonetheless. Jay, I appreciate you coming on, my brother, from the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network, as always. I've been your host and producer this afternoon, Logan Landers. Guys, once again, if you enjoyed the episode, like, follow, share, and subscribe on Facebook as well as on YouTube. And until next time, we will talk to you again on another live episode. We'll talk